on enlightenment and transformation. And I want to welcome all of you who are listening in from YouTube, those of you who are called in. Just so you know, before we even get started, this is a live segment tonight. Like I said recently, I'm going to start doing the live segments. And this is, of course, Chief Yuya speaking. And the call-in number is 347-945-7680. 347-945-7680. But we're also broadcasting right now live on YouTube as well. And our YouTube channel is youtube.com/enlightenment and transformation TV. Enlightenment and Transformation TV. So feel free to look us up there if you want to listen there. But if you want to call in, 347-945-7680. You can call in to listen if you like, or if you just want to call in to speak, whatever, doesn't matter. We have multiple ways that you can get at us. We're going to get started. Tonight's going to be like a nice, I think, a cool session, because we're going to freestyle it a little bit tonight. Well, we're going to freestyle it all the way tonight. You know, as you probably see by the title of tonight's segment, there is no title. It's just a date. And, you know, I had a couple of things I wanted to speak about, but I said, you know, don't really need a theme right now. So we'll just build, you know. So to get us started, because, you know, I usually like to start off with a sonic libation. We're going to do that. And then we'll be right back. So I'll be right back after this little offering. And then I have a little interesting piece about what I'm getting ready to play, which is a song that I did like 12, 13 years ago. Let me see, what are we in? This is 2015, I think. Yeah, this is 15. So I did this song in like 02, 03, something like that, with a friend of mine. And, you know, it's related to what I wanted to talk about tonight. And I just saw it. I have all these old songs. I've been digging through my tapes, old CDs, even DAT tapes. A lot of you probably don't know what DATs are, but just trying to find like background music to use for all the different shows and stuff like that, so we don't have to keep using other people's music, which of course creates copyright issues. So I was like, you know, I'm just going to use all these old songs I have sitting around doing that I never did anything with. But it's kind of good because it's kind of made me also go through kind of like a memory lane. I don't like taking pictures, so I don't have like photo albums and folders of pictures of me where I can say, oh, this is when I was doing this is when I was doing that. So my photo albums are the music that I've created throughout the years. That's how I kind of can remember different moments in my life and things like that. So yeah, we're going to start with that, and then we come back. We're going to build more on just what we're building on. And again, the call in for everyone is 347-945-7680. Feel free to call in. You can ask a question, or you could just comment, or whatever, you know, open forum tonight. All right. We'll be right back after this.
Always special. You live through me, truly. Always special. You live through me, truly. Blue skies with troubled waters, 'cause you're not here with me. Good life, but true love missing, so thick that I can't breathe. Every day I think by your face, your touch, smile, and sweet embrace. It warms me and soothes me, keeps me going day to day, oh, day to day. Blue skies with troubled waters, you're not here with me. No, good life, but true love missing, so thick that I can't see. how can I live without you? Couldn't find someone who trusts me like you do. I gotta use all I've learned. Be the best me for all concerned. Blue skies with trouble waters. You're not here with me. Good life, but true love missing. So thick I can't breathe. Never gonna find a love like yours. Can't come close, this I know for sure. But you send one and we'll have fun. And I love him the way you taught me. Never gonna find a love like yours. Can't come close, this I know for sure. But you send one and we'll have fun. And I love him the way you taught me.
All right. So again, you're listening to Thunderground Thursday, and I am your conductor on this adventure, whether it be sonic, spiritual, social, cultural, or cerebral. I'm your conductor, Chief Yuya, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. And like I said, before we went to that last song, or went to that song, that I was going through my archives and just, like I said, looking for some background music, because I'm always trying to find like little clips that I may have of a song that I did that never really got put out. Because I have a lot of songs that were bought and were, you know, professionally produced and went out. And then I have a lot that I just played around with, never did anything with. So I'm always trying to find little clips to use for the commercials that we do and the videos and all that stuff. So it's a nice little stroll through memory lane a lot of times doing that. And I was looking for some audio for tonight's show. I'm like, I'm tired of hearing these same background tracks. So let me see if I can go even deeper. Then I found some stuff from like 10, 15 years ago. And I found that track. And I said, you know, I remember when we did that, it was related to something that was kind of nagging at me. And I said, I can include that in what we're talking about this evening. And one of the things I wanted to touch on. Oh, and again, I see we got a lot of callers on the call-in line. And again, if you want to speak anything, just hit or ask a question, just hit the number 1. And for those of you who want to call in, all you have to do is dial 347-945-7680. And I just want to say peace to everyone who is, of course, dialed in currently. But yeah, I was thinking about appropriateness. being appropriate. And a lot of people don't really like appropriateness, and contextual awareness is a science. I've always said that. People who just know what to say when, and know when not to say anything, like know when the environment calls for some silence and things like that. It's really a high science to it, I feel. And that particular cut that you just heard, that was a good friend of mine. She still is a good friend of mine. I think I would say my only female, well, she's a sister at this point because I don't keep female friends. So she is a woman. Over the years, we've done a lot of music together. And I guess one day I just kind of woke up, and we were working in the studio. We were working with somebody. I don't remember. I don't want to start dropping names and sound corny. But we were working with somebody, and I think I kind of she did something, and I looked at her, and I just realized that she's my sister now. Like now we're family. After so many years of us doing work together, because that's all a woman. I don't do the friend thing, and so it's either we're family on different levels, or you may be a student or something like that, or an elder. So yeah, her mother had transitioned, right? And I also felt I wanted to play the song for her mother too, by the way. Her mother's name was Marie, and I'm only going to say her first name, but her name was Marie. And when her mother transitioned, she took it really, really, really hard. They were very close, and both very just sweet women, very sweet women, And they lived in North Carolina, so she came up here, up north, because she kind of just needed to get away. Sometimes when people transition, people don't know what to say, and they just say anything that's kind of stupid because they feel like when you're grieving, you can't pick up stupid statements. So she said, I'm just tired of people asking me how I'm doing. She was like, how do you think I'm doing? So she said, I'm just tired of that question. How are you doing? Yeah, and if you hear little pops, like you might have just heard me pop my fingers. I have my kittens in the room with me, and they're trained when I snap my fingers, they know they better stop climbing on whatever they're climbing on. So she had went through that experience, and she said, I need to be around you because you kind of know what to say and what not to say at certain times. So I was like, all right, my door's always open, and if I'm not here, if you just need a place to hide out and just, lay out on my sofa and eat up my food, feel free. The door's open. Because sometimes when you don't know what to say to a person when they're going through a heavy situation, the most you can just offer them is just your resources. Here, take my car keys, go for a drive. Here's my house keys, whatever. Sometimes it's just allowing them to be in a space or make use of some of the things that you've been bestowed, or some would say blessed with. That can help a lot of times. So she came by, and somehow we got on the weather. It wasn't very nice up here, and she said, yeah, the skies are always gray here. And I was like, yeah, well, y'all, down south is always blue skies. And I said something like, yeah, but I know for you right now the water's a little troubled though, and that's kind of like all I said. And she just was kind of like, I guess, reflecting on, yeah, blue skies with troubled waters. And I was just setting up a new studio setup literally that day. And I was setting up, rewiring all my equipment and everything. And I had pulled out my guitar. That song that you just heard was the first song that I did. It was actually a test song. It wasn't even a real song. I was testing my connections. So I just started, I laid down the guitar track, and then I went and jumped on my drums and was testing my drum mics, and went on my bass and was playing my bass, my piano. At the time I had an organ. I had a lot of instruments in my house at that time. I had organs, pianos, 2 drum sets, like 12 guitars, 4 basses. I had instruments in every room on every floor. So as I started creating a song right there, she just started writing, and she kept singing and singing. And next thing you know, we were testing out the mic. So I was like, why don't you sing something real quick so I can test my wiring, coming from my board. And voila, we created that song, literally in the day, and I never really played it much because I guess when I think about it, it brings me back to that day and that time. And she was very thankful because you know, it's the contextual awareness, you know, even though for those of us who claim to be conscious, right? A lot of times we don't understand, you know, we get a little thrown off with contextual awareness. Like, we get upset because people are not conscious, right? We get upset because we're surrounded by people who just don't get it. And sometimes we don't realize that we're bullies. You know, we've become bullies to the people around us who are not interested in maybe doing what we're doing. And sometimes you can create a very fertile environment for conscious growth without having to do a whole bunch of preaching and, you know, you guys need to do this and you need to do that. So her being able to come into this space where the environment was fertile for her to sit and just write a song, and for me to sit and just do music and whatever, and, you know, just sit and build, and her to be able to sit there and cry because she was crying and going through it, and went through it further after that, after she left me. But creating that environment where you kind of learn sometimes when to say things that are appropriate and when things are not. And I'll give you an example. A lot of times, someone had brought this up Sunday. It was kind of why I was thinking about it, and then the song reminded me of it. When they said, you know, I noticed you're asking about certain things, but then people are coming back with certain other responses on the call-in, you know, and not that Sunday's show has a theme, so you don't have to talk about what I'm talking about. Just like right now, if you want to call in, you can talk about mayonnaise and mustard. It doesn't matter, you know. But in that instance, right? Sometimes we get into situations with family or friends, and that's what had happened to her, especially around when someone transitions. It's usually when families sometimes go at each other's throats. It's really sad to have to witness. And sometimes we don't understand that even if we have the higher conscious perspective, we can be wrong for the environment. We're not always the best thing for the environment. Those of us who are like, you know, cultural and spiritual eggheads, we're not always what's best for the environment. And a lot of times, as we all know, the environment is not what's best for us. I mean, we're quick to acknowledge that. Like, everyone around me doesn't know anything. They're all deadheads. Okay, yeah, that is often, you know, a reality. But sometimes you're in an environment where, like, someone will want to argue with you just for the sake of argument, or disagree with you just for the sake of disagreement. And you may be presenting a certain perspective, and this person is intimidated or disgusted by said perspective. This person lives on the fringes of sanity. You see, so, because you got to remember, a lot of us who get into these type of discussions and arguments with family or whomever, it's because we're not really living out what it is that we're learning about. So we still have like that wild cowboy, young gunner, you know, I got to go out here and get everyone to validate what I'm doing by arguing with them. You know, and then if I win the argument, or if I get them just to shut up, then that means consciousness wins, you know, another point. And the thing about that's real deep and real important to kind of monitor and pay attention to is this. Sometimes in certain environments, just like you have people who may be disagreeable to talk to or disagreeable to deal with, and what they'll do is, because they may be offended by the core essentials and the core effects of truth, what they tend to do is they tend to deflect. They'll go all around the point. Like, you may start talking about conscious information, and then they'll say something like, well, if you know so much, why don't you, you know, to do something like that to take you away. And really what they're trying to see is they're trying to figure out where your buttons are. You know, they're trying to figure out your triggers, because if they can get you to trigger in one of your spaces, then you'll get off of them. You'll start presenting truth to them, because a lot of times the truth is a medicinal, a bitter medicine to the unaware. You know, so sometimes you'll start to realize that, hey man, maybe, like, you could maybe tell that individual, like, you know, that's not really what we're talking about right now. Like, we're on this right now. And their adamancy of deflection will oftentimes reveal to you um, their investment or divestment and what the core principles, the core essentials are of what you're actually talking about. If what you're talking about even has any core essentials, because sometimes you might just be a fringe speaker. You got to realize when it comes to conscious information, a lot of people are just tourists. They're just walking around with their cameras and and little video cameras and their brochure guides, and they're just watching. And their brochure guides are the conscious information or YouTube. Like, oh, okay, well, this is what you say when you get around the natives: peace and blessings, hotep pool, alafia, you know, and they learn these little tour guide things to say when they're around conscious folk, and they're not really trying to get to the core of things, you see, because they live on the fringes. So sometimes when you're in discussions with people like that, they'll say a lot of things that are off topic. They don't want to go to the topic. They'll stay off topic, and they'll stay on the fringes of information. You got to realize that as a consciously aware person, if you're not really applying what it is that you're learning, then you're compiling a lot of knowledge on top of yourself, which is great. You need knowledge. You need it. That's the first step, because the knowledge of something is the basis of it. It's the principle. Knowledge is the principle. Okay. And as you move through your journey, you develop an experience that now makes you wise to what it is that you knew about before. So I may know about steamboats, but until I actually get on a steamboat or build a steamboat or see how one is built, I won't be able to have any wisdom or tips or hints to share about a steamboat other than what I may have just read or something, or what someone has told me. But I understand the principal mechanics of it. That's the knowledge. I understand it because the knowledge is going to be that base defining point of a thing. Okay, so that first point of definition is the knowledge of something. And then as that definition or that thing moves, like a person can be defined, right? But then as a person changes and moves, the definition changes and moves. You become more wise, and then your understanding will tell you that, hey, this thing moves. This thing is always changing. And you might even learn the seasons of change in a particular thing. You might even learn, like, yeah, every December this thing does this, or every 3 months it does that. So I'm seeing the movement, I'm wise to it, and I kind of understand why it may change or why it becomes what it becomes. So in her situation, she was in an environment where a lot of people were not really dealing with the core issue that was going on, which was the transitioning of a loved one. And they were dealing with a lot of fringe issues because they didn't want to deal with the core issue. They were dealing with who's going to get what, who's going to sing at the funeral, who's going to cook, repasses, and all kind of craziness. Stuff that I don't deal with. So she was able to come and kick it with me. And like, I know you're not even gonna talk about any of that. Nope. Not gonna talk about any of that. We can talk about whatever you want. So one of the things that she said that she included in the song lyric was that I went into the house. She had to get some clothes for her. No. Let me back up. The day that she was told that her mother's cancer had went into remission, she said she started choking. She said she ran outside of the house. She could not breathe. She said she went and started just opening up all the windows. And she was like, the air got so thick, I could not breathe. And like my throat was swelling and constricting. So I literally had to run outside into the front yard to try to breathe. And that was in there. It says so thick that I can't breathe. So we just were talking about things like that. What does that mean? And what do we do now that she's transitioning? One of the things that she had said, as you hear in the lyric, is that you left someone who loves me like you do. At the time she was dealing with somebody who was a great bridge and agent for transition for her, somebody who really cared for her, and was able to let her know that she still had the potential to be loved by someone, even if her mother was no longer present in physical form. So in that instance, she knew I am outnumbered. I'm outnumbered by people who don't see things as I see it or feel things as I feel it, or who want to deal with the core issues. So let me get to a core operator. I got to go build with my engineer brother. So she drove all the way up from North Carolina, just to spend time with me, and just, or I should say rather for me to spend time with her. And I was in the middle of doing something. I said, well, you could watch me solder these wires and solder these connections and do testing 1 2 3s on everything if you want. Just you could kick it and we can play some music. I think we were sitting there playing Guy or something and listening to Aaron Hall, just bugging out, allowing her to take her mind off things for a moment. But like I said, I wanted to really talk about just the inappropriateness sometimes that we present to a situation when we're bullying people with our own conscious information, and we're not sensitive and aware as to sometimes how we need to pull back, sometimes how we need to take inventory of the environment and realize that this is not the space, the form, and this is not the moment for whatever it is that we're presenting. And this is kind of a heads up too, I'm dismantling the Facebook group that we have, the ANU Spiritual Training Facebook group. And I created a basic form that we're still tapping up and editing and making look pretty and more functional on enlightenment and transformation. So if you go to enlightenment and transformation, you'll see a link for forms, and you can register for the forms, or you can just go to enlightenment and transformation /forum, and you can go to the forums that way. Okay. And if if you want to go there, anybody wants to talk about the shows and stuff like that, you could use that, or you could use the YouTube comment section is good as well. But I made a determination that Facebook is not the context. Facebook is not the environment for what it is that I want to do. And sometimes we get so used to being in environments that we don't agree with and that we may not even like. We get so used to being in those type of spaces and just complaining about it. Yeah, you see, they got this now and they got this now. And you can do things about it. Like how she did. She got in her car and drove. Like, I'm out. And she was her mother's only child, to make it even more clear for you. So it's not like I have 10 brothers and sisters and, this occasion is lost on me. I'm the only child here. So I'm the only one feeling this from a child's perspective, but everyone else is dealing with all kind of stuff on the fringe, So sometimes to get to the core of things, you have to put yourself in an environment that's conducive for core conversations, when you want to get to the core of a discussion. So like even the person who had asked about that on Sunday's show, why are you're saying certain things, but people are asking questions that have nothing to do with what you're talking about? Because Blog Talk Radio is not really the place for a core conversation. Most people who are on Blog Talk Radios or who are on YouTube are window shoppers. So they don't want you to pull them into the core is where all the action is. That's the nucleus. And once you get into the nucleus, you got to do something, because you got to move the outer shell. They don't want you pulling them into all of that. No, I'm not here for all that. Don't pull me into your nucleic work. I'm just window shopping and having a good old time. Don't pull me in, and you got to know, sometimes you got to know who you're speaking to, because I know a lot of times people are quick to get very frustrated with those who are not invested in conscious information, and more importantly, invested in conscious movement. And they're not aware that, no, not everyone is going to jump and move based on what you're sharing. In the same instance, everyone who goes and visits the Taj Mahal or visits any other place, or may visit a temple or a cathedral, is going to be an immediate convert. Some people just want to go to the cathedral because they appreciate the architecture. Some people just go to church because they like to hear the music. Some people just like hanging around with the conscious community because they got the best essential oils and shea butter, or they like drumming, or they like dancing, and you can always kind of tell the window shopper tourist, because they usually want to emulate or at least infuse external experiences that have nothing to do with the actual movement into that same environment. So you'll find that those are the people who are typically most addicted to the preacher type speakers. You know, they love the preachers because it makes them feel it creates a congruency against across every tourist stop. You know, because it's just like a Microsoft program or just a computer program. If you go to any computer program you work in and you go to the top left-hand corner, you're going to have a file function. It's going to say file. And usually you're going to have file, then edit, then view, or maybe window, then options, help at the end. All programs are structured pretty much the same way. And developers structure programs that way so that they can sell their product more easily. It's easier for you to jump from product to product when the learning curve is not so steep, when you don't have to relearn the product all over again from scratch. So what they do is they make each product very similar. You see? So a lot of times it's the same thing with conscious information. Everyone's saying the same thing. And the reason they're saying the same thing because they don't want you to have a learning shock. You see, they're not going to deal with anything at the core. They're going to deal with all the fringe irrelevant stuff to keep you from going, saying this is uncomfortable and leaving. You see, because once you have that experience, you can listen and you listen to some of the people calling to Chief Speaks and they're expecting one thing from me because, well, you know, he's into Orisha and Ifa and, you know, whatever the look I may have, he looks like he's probably you know, one of those guys who's gonna maybe agree with a lot of what I have to say or something like that. And then when someone starts talking and I get right to the core of it, they'll either get offended or they'll start shucking and jiving and buck dancing and back swimming. Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. Oh, that's not, you know, because they're not used to people talking to the core of their issue. You know, for a lot of our people, the core of our issue is that we're afraid to create families, or we're so unlikable we can't create families. We don't really talk about that. Some people like, I'm having trouble finding a mate because you're unlovable. You're unlovable and you're unlikable. That's why you don't have any friends, and that's why you don't have a mate. Nobody would want to be around you. I'm ready to get off the phone with you. You see, people are they're just not used to someone speaking to the core. And when they do, a person who speaks to the core gets labeled quickly. Mean, arrogant, chauvinistic, harsh, abusive, you know, all of these different things because we've become addicted to window shopping. You know, it's like when you go to a store and somebody will come outside and say, come inside, come in, take a look. You want to run. You want to run so fast. No, I'm good. I got to get back to work. You know, you're not working that day. You know, you don't want to be confronted with the possibility that you may buy something in there, or the truth that you don't have the money to buy anything. You like sitting there imagining yourself. You like playing make-believe. You know, so you'll ask questions and you'll do things that are totally unrelated to what actually needs to be done and what your soul is calling for. And that becomes the culture. Irrelevancy. Impotency. You used to hear me talk about that a lot in the earlier shows. The community is impotent. Totally impotent. Community is full of masturbators. You know, just a whole lot of circular activity, cyclical activity, without actually moving into a spiral where you're ascending to produce something. And when you start saying, well, listen, you know, the reason why we're doing all of this is because we're trying to create a movement. People say, oh, no, I got to get back to work. They don't want to come in. They don't want to come into the core, you know. And a lot of times the people, that you guys find yourselves in disagreement with the most, those are window shoppers. And they're looking at you like you're an animal in a cage. That's why I don't have a problem making fun of you. You know, you'll be at an event with them and you'll pull out your little Tupperware of salad, or, you know, of some spinach, something green. And they're looking there with their big pieces of meat with sugary, syrupy, spicy, greasy something poured all over it, and they'll start making fun of you. They don't care about how you feel. They could care less. You know, it's because they look at you like you're just an animal in a zoo. you know, and they're still playing. Just like people will go to the tigers or the elephants and throw rocks at them, you know, to try to see what they can do to make the tiger roar, or the lion roar, you know, the elephant charge the cage and knock it over, you know. They want to see, because that's a magnificent image, you know, that's something to behold. So imagine someone who's filled with conscious information spazzing out and like just letting you have it. Like imagine if you could get, and I mean a real teacher, not some of these cornballs we have out here. It's a lot of cornballs. There's a lot of cornballs. Let's say like a Shahrazad Ali, you know, or Sister Soldier. Sister Soldier's a good one. What would it take to yank Sister Soldier out of recluse, because she's been a bit recluse past years, and get her just to like let it all out. Tell us how you really feel about what's going on out here. It would be entertaining for many people. They would do that just for entertainment. Meanwhile, this person it's like you sending this person on an emotional roller coaster. And if they're sitting around you pulling out their little salad or their little kale mix or whatever, and then they're still around you, it's because they feel some love for you. They want to try to feel some connection for you, but you don't love them, so you just make fun of them. You see, that's a common scenario, right? Especially amongst parents, where you always hear me say your family's the worst thing going. They are the worst thing going. They're the first ones to make you feel like garbage for trying to better yourself. They're the first one to remind you of all the things that you do. You ain't doing nothing because blah, 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 blah. This is just like when you wanted to be a Afro-futurist. The same thing. You ain't about nothing, you know? So, you know, in the same instance with people who are working from the fringes, you know, people come into this for all different types of reasons, and some just like a show. That's just sometimes you even hear me talking on the show, and I'll start saying things to people. You can hear them like giggling and playing, like, okay, okay. Just idiots. That's what I'm listening. You know, when they're doing it, I'm like, you fool. Your life is a mess. And I'm trying to tell you that in a nice way so you can get it cleaned up and fixed, and you're giggling. That's why your life is a mess, because you're a clown. That's what I'm thinking. I don't say that. I just let them walk away thinking like, yeah, I just entertain you and you got the best of me. They don't realize that once a person starts showing a level of rudeness or whatever, I'm not really even talking to them at that point. I'm talking to whoever else may be listening who may have a similar question. You know, people are just not used to, like, generally people are very rude, especially on the internet. You know, people will comment on your stuff, won't even say hi first, won't even greet you, just be like, well, what's this about? And that, like, go F yourself. Or people will call into the show. Okay, I got a question. Who cares that you got a question? Why are you calling into a show with a demand? Who cares if you have a question? That's a demand. No one here works for you. But that's become such the norm. For me to say something like that sounds like I'm just being extreme. But that's because we've grown so far away from that core point where we're like cave people. We don't have any respect or manners anymore. We don't have respect for people anymore. Respect for one another. We have no decency, no morals, none of that. All that stuff is shot. So when someone tries to pull you back to the core, what do? You kick and you scream, or you blame them for trying to bring you back into a hot, burning house because you don't want to go back into the fires of refinement. You want to stay like a savage on the outskirts, trying to provoke the animal that's inside the cage. You want to poke and stick at me with sharpened sticks, hoping that you can raise my ire and get me to lunge. And then it's like, oh, look at that. Now I'm the savage. Look at the savage. So I'm using that to explain to you why it's not good to always try to convert people into your way of thinking, even if you think your way of thinking is best. Because sometimes you have to be aware of the contextual environment that you're in. Sometimes you're outnumbered, outgunned, because you'll start talking to one person and somebody else is ganging up on you. Then the other person will gang up on you. And you'll realize that, wait a minute, no one in this environment is going to listen to anything I have to say. Now, it may not be because they're ignorant. It could be because you're wrong. I know. We don't like hearing that. But it's always a possibility that they're right about whatever you're talking about and you're the wrong one. But the bottom line, a lot of times if you're speaking a lot of truth and people are not trying to hear it, it's just not the right time. It's just not the right environment. And you have to be a big enough person to say that sometimes. To say, you know what? I want to thank you guys for letting me say my little bit of piece here, but I realize this isn't even this. It ain't even about all that right now, and just shut your mouth or leave. Just leave. Even if it's a single person, sometimes you have to direct that for a person, especially people who like to deflect. So yeah, if you hear me talking about core issues, like if you hear me keep talking about getting with family and becoming a person who's worthy of family on the show enough, of course people are going to call and deflect, because they sure don't want any of my segments to turn into something that may actually change them. So they're going to call and ask me about a rock or fire or some ancient language. What does it matter if you know any of that stuff and you ain't doing nothing anyway? What does it even matter? There's amazing events taking place in the universe right now as we speak. Right now, there's amazing things happening throughout the world. There were new species coming forth. People are evolving. Indigo children are being born. Or it's just Thursday night. You see, and you still have over 30 books on your bookshelf that you haven't even cracked open yet, that you bought on Amazon or wherever, just because you felt you needed to have them and you ain't even start reading them. There's still probably 20 to 30 rituals that someone's giving you in a reading that you haven't even started on. That could be a miraculous event. But again, we can't blame people who don't want to go to the core. Just like if I go to a foreign country and I want to just be a tourist and observe, person can't blame me for wanting to observe. Come on now. I just want to observe. Maybe I'm doing something back in my own country that I'm more comfortable with, or that I enjoy more, or that I'm more familiar with. Maybe what you're trying to pull me into, because it's so foreign to me, even if it is my core, it's so foreign to me, I don't know how I'll function in that environment. I feel like I'll be totally lost. I feel like I got to start over again. So if I collect enough fringe information, maybe I can trick myself into thinking that I'll be strong enough to step to the core. Maybe. So a lot of times, that's what we're dealing with. And I see some of you get so frustrated. A lot of you call in on my shows and you say, okay, what do you do if you got a family member who's like this? And I mean, I've exposed them to things and they still just won't Well, first thing you could do is stop being so oppressive. Let people make up their own minds, People can make up their own minds about what they want to do. And you never know what a person is contemplating internally. But the bottom line is you can't guilt or out knowledge a person into anything. You become something very wicked in that sense when you're promoting that level of, I'll say, extraction from the individuals who you say you love. Like I'm careful. I always tell my family, like, we can't always say we. Like we always say, yeah, we doing bad, and sometimes people talk about America and be like, well, that's why we invaded such as. I ain't doing none of that, man. They did that. I didn't, I wasn't in on that meeting. No one called me upstairs to say, hey, we're gonna go recolonize Africa. I wasn't in on that. I would have had an opinion about that, So I can't always include myself in the we. But when it comes to people who I may say I love or I share genetic strands, DNA strands with, that separation is a lot harder, because I have to acknowledge that the we I'm much closer to the we there, even if I don't want to be, I'm much closer to the reality of that we and our family there. you know. And by me desiring to create something new, by separating, see, because it's all of the craziness of your family that created the specialness of who you are. You can't throw that stuff out. We're so quick to want to throw it out. Yeah, my parents are straight up deadheads. They're idiots. Well, maybe some of that you needed to get to where you are today. Maybe some of that stubbornness that they have is what you needed when you decided not to accept a ridiculous culture. You know, some of it worked in there for something. This is a reason for it. You know, so when you're denying that, what you're doing is you're trying to genetically modify yourself, because you're denying your genetic origin. You're denying those chromosomes that you receive from your father and your mother. Nah, I just want, you know, I want 10 from him and 3 from her. You trying to create a whole new thing, and 10 from him, 3 for her, and I'll take another 11 from Marcus Garvey. What are you creating? That's why when people ask me a lot of times on the show, I'm just coming into, I'm learning about Orisha. Which Orisha should I start with? Start with your ancestors. That's the Orisha you start with. Start with your, because who are you? That's how you know who you are. You want to skip over, everybody's so quick to skip over that. Well, my family wasn't really conscious. Well, neither are you. And neither is Chief Yuya. Because if you and I were walking down the street and someone decided to attack us, we each have to respond. Now, I may start saying a chant and spitting some herbs in faces while I'm spitting razor blades in faces, because, you know, pray to Allah but tie up your camel, if y'all know what I mean. But either way, the rain is falling on both of us. So that means I haven't extracted myself out of this dimension of cause and effect that you're in. We're both in the same thing. As I'm speaking right now, I'm breathing. Big surprise. The guru is breathing. You see? I'm trying to keep my squeaky chair, you can hear it, yeah, from making noise in the show. The guru has squeaky furniture. He hasn't bought in WD-40 for his furniture to spray it down. Yeah. You know, we're all on this path together. And I always have said that from the first show. I'm just a student. Every time you've heard me on guest shows, I've always said that. I'm a student. I'm just further ahead than a lot of people, but I'm a student. Because I'm acknowledging the connectedness and the line, the link, the chain, Obatalas, chain, Dambala, snake. I'm acknowledging that snake connection that we have with one another. That chain that links us all together. Because if I was to extract myself from that chain and to pretend like I'm something better than all of you, I'm better than some of you. Yeah, I'll take that. I'm better than some of you. Some of you ain't doing nothing. If you're not working to make yourself better, then you can't just take that claim like we're all the same. You know, one's better. Yeah, some people are better. Some people work a little harder than others. Some people don't do anything. You know, but my point is that if I was to extract myself from that, what would I be? You think about that for a second. Those of you who are so afraid of genetically modified organisms in your food. Well, what is that? That's an extraction of something that's actually real and creating a clone of it, an unreal clone. But wouldn't that be what I would be doing if I separate and say, yeah, I'm better than the rest of you guys and da-da-da. If I'm denying my family roots, if I'm denying the core that I came from because I feel like what I've established for myself on the fringe is so much better, you know what I'm doing? That's called grafting. Grafting. That's how you make a wicked beast. Some people call it the devil. I don't call it the devil because the devil is not wicked. Okay. The devil is just another force of nature. But wickedness is anti-nature. You're going against the natural core flow because you want to extract yourself. You want to graft yourself out of the flow. That's how you create a wicked being. I don't want to be that wicked being. Don't want to be it. That's why they say absolute power corrupts absolutely. because people who have absolute power have now extracted themselves from the pool of the people who they're supposed to be serving. They see themselves as something totally different. Sometimes they see themselves as something totally different, even genetically. Oh, we come from the such and such line and this and that. You've created a wicked being in yourself. All right, we're going to take a call. 305 area code. You're on Chief. You're on Thunderground Thursday.
Good evening, Chief. What's going on?
Peace, brother. I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, brother. All right, maintaining.
Good, good.
I actually just started listening to the show, so I'm not really sure what the subject matter is, but I had a little situation I want to run by you. Is that cool?
Sure, not a problem, brother. Let's hear it.
Okay, cool. I spoke to you before. I recently
I recognize the number.
I'm recently going through a divorce with my wife. You know, I read your book, Solution to a Dysfunctional Family, and it had like some fire in that book. And I started really applying some of those nuggets that you gave out. So I started changing the format of my house. I put together protocols, and I realized that my ex-wife, she wasn't going to go with that. So I realized it was going to be a problem. So I told her to go home.
Okay.
Well, when I told her to go home, I gave her 4 months that I would continue to front the bills for everything. I gave her 4 months. So I held her down for 4 months because I supported financially everything for her for that time. And during that time, she still continued to think everything was a game and continued to move on the way that she wanted to maneuver. Well, her Babalawo, which is my Oluwo, came down here, and she's a part of a big African-centered community down here. So in this African-centered community, I guess there's been a lot of talk about, oh, he's like the most evil person in the world. And in my mind, I'm really like, look, at the end of the day, I had to let her go.
Who's the he?
I had to let her go because hello?
When you say he, who's the he that they're referring to?
They're referring to me as
okay.
he because of, at the end of the day, I needed peace in the household, and I was trying to change it up because when I spoke to you before, there was a lot of dysfunction going on, but I tried to clean it up and start in-house. And the whole purpose was she told me she was going to continue to talk to other people outside of the house. That was going to be a problem. So I'm not going to deal with that. I wasn't going to deal with that. So anyhow, when I let her go, I cut her off financially, meaning now there's nothing else that's left. So her priest came down here from Nigeria, which is my Oluwo, came down here, and his suggestion to me was like, look, I see what you're doing, and you're really doing a good job. Like, you're really doing a good job, because I go above and beyond. Like, I do a lot for my kids, Chief. So I go above and beyond, and I guess the community sees it as because she's cut off financially, phone, her company, business. I had all of that. Like, I financed everything. So now it's all on her. So now she don't have enough money to pay for it. So it looked like everything just collapsed on her. But at the end of the day, it was all about, choices it was all about choices that it came down to of what she wanted to do. She told me she was going to accept other people's opinion over mine, and she was going to continue to do that. Well, I told her, well, listen, those benefits and everything else got to go. Well, now everyone's telling me that I need to talk to all of her community members or one of her friends about and explain to her, so other people can hear my side of the story of what really happened. So now, because she's telling all of this sad story about me, so now everyone wants me to tell my side of the story. But I'm like, this don't make sense, Chief. Like, this whole situation don't make sense. Like, I'm talking to, like, this is what my Oluwo told me. Make sure that you get your side of the story out, because you're a good guy and you don't want people to run your name into the mud because y'all still deal in the same conscious community. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't see myself having to explain anything. Like, because one thing about it, my character is, it remains the same. I am who I am. I am that person. But I don't see me going to tell my business and what went on in my household to outsiders, which she's doing it. She's doing it. And the whole violin playing a sad song, and most times people stick together so they help out when they see, oh, this sister needs building up. We need to work with her because he just totally went AWOL. He don't care. But my main focus is my children, and that's what I concentrate on, and that's like that's what my ex is not. She don't do anything with my kids. Like she's focused. She's in law school, all this other stuff going on. So my thing is, which I already felt, why would anybody want me to go talk and explain my story to anybody else, to her community, to the community out there? Like, why is people telling me that I should get my story out, or should I even get my story out there?
Okay, so let me ask you this question. That community that she's a part of, are you a part of the same community?
To put it this way, I was a part of it, and I'm not opposed to it. I was just a part of it to the homeschool atmosphere because they got a homeschool going there. But my kids are not attending the homeschool right now. They don't attend that particular homeschool. But eventually, I'm sure I'll put them in there once.
So it doesn't really sound like you're as invested in this community as she is. Is that correct?
No, I'm not.
Okay,
that is correct. No,
so it doesn't sound like this is actually your community. It sounds like this is something that she's doing. And if that's the case, then it doesn't matter what they're saying about you. Who cares? They're not a part of your community. So it doesn't make one bit of difference. Now, she may be going on a PR campaign against you because she's trying to secure resources. And if she decides to do something against you, she has to make sure that she's built up enough energy from the things that she said and the batteries that people are putting in her back, that she's built up enough energy to be like, yeah, and that's why I'm gonna go and do this. You right, I need to do that, right? Y'all agree with me, right? You know, that type of thing, because she's building up that momentum with those individuals. But again, who cares if they're not a part of your community? Right. You don't acknowledge them as being a part of your community, meaning that you have no obligation to them. They hold no authority over you. You're not engaged in any collective financial or social contracts or residential contracts together as a community. They don't matter. You know, so I wouldn't, anybody who would listen to one side of the story and go with that is an idiot. You know, so they don't matter anyway. Only a person who matters would even care, because you could say what you want right now. I mean, I'm listening to you with 1/3 of my being, because the other 2/3 are reserved for her side, and then the other 1/3 that's left is reserved for what really happened, the truth. Now, anybody with any sense is going to listen from that perspective. Anyone who just takes your word and like, yeah, and gets fired up and runs with it, or takes her word and gets fired up and runs with it, and forgets the fact that, well, we're talking about a family here. So let's talk about what's really important here. Aside from he say, she said, can the family be made whole again? Because that's the most important thing. And anyone who's not coming from that perspective, doesn't matter. They're worthless. They don't make one bit of difference in the world. I could tell you right now, if your lady called me and wanted to talk about that stuff, which I'm sure she wouldn't, but if she wanted to talk about that stuff, I mean, my first thing would be like, well, let's all talk. You know, let's the three of us talk. And I would only function in the capacity
90 seconds.
90 seconds. But just so everyone knows, we're getting ready to go in the archives in about another minute and a half. So if you're not called in at 347-945-7680, I advise you to do so. But yeah, even in that capacity, because you two and your children are not a member of my community, I can only function as just a counselor. Say, hey, well, here's some suggestions, but I don't have any doctrine or any 10-point plan that I can pull from. 60 seconds. And say from that 10-point plan or from that doctrine, I can't pull from that and say, well, listen, y'all know this is when we have grievances amongst each other, this is how we resolve them. I can't do that with you because I don't know the tenets of your communal structure. So again, if you're not a part of her community, whatever it is that you decide to do is not relevant to whatever it is that they do, because you're functioning by two different cultural codes. If you say like, yeah, if you talking crap and acting like I'm not doing anything and I'm over here busting my behind, then I'm gonna do less than. I'm gonna let you see what you really are doing on your own. Now, some people would classify that as financial abuse. Other people would say, no, that's justice. That's fair. But it all depends on your 10 seconds. 10 seconds. It all depends on your communal perspective. So I wouldn't necessarily advise you to go and make some statement amongst these people, because you're going to come out looking like a villain anyway because of the fact that you're a black man. Black men never come out whenever you got a black woman crying about something. You if you got a black or a white, especially with white women, you'd be dead. But if you got a black woman crying about something, no matter what went down, you're the villain. Whatever the movie is, you're the villain. You know, you could have just been like, well, I just auditioned for the part of the parking meter, like to check the coins out of the parking. You're the villain now because you're the black man in the movie. So once you already know that, it's like going into a court and trying to seek justice. You know, it's already slated against you. You know, they got her thinking she's a good sister because she's down with the tradition. They probably doing rituals with her and telling her to light candles and stuff against you and stuff like that, because you probably out there cheating anyway and all that other stupid stuff people say. And probably no one is really saying, well, you know, what can we do to make sure the family lasts and that the children have the balance that they need? You know, people are so foolish that I don't care if you an elder in a community for 30 years. A lot of times they're just straight up jackasses, because somebody by now should have checked her behavior. Somebody by now should have said, well, listen, if your husband isn't here, we really can't get into this that much, because your husband needs to be present. Whether he's wrong or whether you're wrong, we have what's called decorum, and we have what's called decency, and this isn't decent. You know what you're doing, right? This isn't decent. And again, even in talking to you now, I don't know who's wrong. I don't know if it's you or her, but I know that this ain't the way we do it. You know, and no, man, you're the king of your castle, brother. You know, you don't have to explain anything in your castle. Nothing. If I came to your house today and you were dancing on the table butt naked and you were like, yeah, this is what I do to get my appetite worked up before dinner, that's your castle. All right. I'll just close. Either I have to leave or I close my eyes because I don't want to see that. But this is your castle. You create the culture and the rules. You know, and obviously she's not comfortable with that. And, you know, if you want to continue to deal with that, that's on you. I wouldn't. You know, I'd toss her quick. But, you know, everybody has a different purpose. For my purpose in life, I don't have time to deal with uncooperative women. You may have time for it. So.
Oh, no, not at all, Chief. That's why, listen, the first thing I told you, Chief, when I called that book was fire, man. There was some nuggets in there, man. And it really helped clean my life up. So I appreciate that. And I mean, I'm clear as all outdoors now, man. I can assure you that. And I think that was too much for her at the time. Like, nah, hold on, man. This dude changed, but I changed and I got the right direction. So I understood what I was implementing for my family, for my nation, for my rites of passage for my children. And if you wasn't going to get on board, well, you were just going to slow me down. So it's either you with it, you was going to be with it, or you not. And I realized she was not. So it's time to go. It's time to move.
Yeah. No hard feelings. You know, you can still love one another. You know, they could still be love there and all of that. But some people, when you start to ascend, brother, we're all designed and made differently. You know, like me, I was always husky. Even when I was a young kid, I was always the stocky kid, you know, on the block. So when something happened and everybody started running, I was always the one in the back yelling, wait up, because I could never, you know, I was like Doughboy. And if you ever see that movie Boys in the Hood, you know, I was the mean. That was me. I was the mean, stocky kid, you know, always sticking up for somebody, fighting the older kids because I was bigger. But when it came time to run, I just know, well, I'm gonna be the one who gets caught. I'm always the one who gets caught because I wasn't built for speed, you know. So that's how life is, man. We're all designed differently, and some people are not built to go to the next place. You know, they can't keep up, and it's no strike against them. Again, we're all designed differently, you know. And for where she's at, and maybe the glory and the support and the nurturing that she's gotten within that community, maybe that's all she needs. Maybe that's all she's ever wanted. And for you establishing, like you said, something where, no, we're doing our rites of passage, this and that, and I'm raising conscious warrior scholars that may not be on her radar right now, or she may have a different definition of that. You know, the beauty is at least she's not running them up into a church somewhere. So, you know, at the end of the day, you may disagree, but at least your children are still being connected with the tradition. And that's a beautiful thing. You know, but the tradition also calls for decorum and order. You know, my aunt is very much present in our tradition, you know, or who we would call Obatala is very much present in our tradition. And that order is necessary. And right now, things are out of order, man. Even the Babalawo that she works with, a Babalawo is not a third party husband. You know, a Babalawo is a community guide, and his job is supposed to make sure that the community is strong and it stays together. You know, now as far as his advice, I don't think he gave you bad advice. It's just that maybe he's not totally aware of the fact that you're not as committed to that community as she is. And again, you know, you say he's coming from Nigeria, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so he probably doesn't totally understand the division that we have here. You know, over there, it is something like over there, all you'd have to do is just call her mother, and that would put a stop to this. Because that's the last thing, that's the biggest threat you can give to a West African woman. The biggest threat, I'm going to tell your mother. Because up into their 20s, their mothers will still knuckle them down. Their mothers will come to the house and beat them, and well into their 20s. You know, here, that doesn't mean it. I mean, somebody will laugh at you in your face if you say that. You know, so he may not be so aware of the fact that the communities are not as organized and create the sense of responsibility like they do back home. You know, here it's our people love drama. So yeah, they want you to come tell your story so they can get more drama. No, send her back home. Tell her, cut her off. Say, listen, we're not going to listen to this anymore. Whatever you two need to work out, you work out. But we heard what we need to hear. We're here. We're not listening to this anymore. You know, but that takes a level of maturity. So that's my answer for that, brother. That's what I encourage you to maintain your position. You don't have to explain anything to anyone unless you two have jointly agreed that that person who you're explaining to, because it's not a whole community, unless you've been beating the daylights out of her or something like that.
No.
Right. So then you wouldn't have to go in front of a community to explain anything. If it's just some regular disagreements, if you two have the same Babalawo, then that's the one you have to talk to, and that's it. That's the one that you two should sit and say, okay, we need some solutions here. You know, but as far as a whole community, find me a whole community of people who are not who have sense. You're going to get all kind of twisted and backwards advice, and that'll be just a big confusion. You know, if you have somebody who you both agreed that this man and hopefully that man has a wife, because it would be good for you to talk to him and his lady. And if you've both agreed that, yeah, this is the individual who we have vested some authority into when it comes to our family. So if he tells us to go this way, not that we're slaves to that, but we're really going to have to really pay attention to that. That's the only person that you really would talk to. Anybody else? No, they don't matter, man. They don't matter.
Now, Chief, because like, for example, he is married and he talked to us before, but the thing of it was, I guess she accused him of siding with me because he's a male. So of course he was in total agreement of exactly what it was that I was doing with my family. Because I even told him, like, look, I told her for right now, we need to cut everyone off, and what we're gonna do is consult in-house first. That's what we're gonna do. And then if that doesn't work, we'll collectively both go out there and speak to someone. So nobody has no more say-so in my house, and I have a different energy in here. So he was like, I agree. I agree. She told me no. So now he getting accused of siding with me because he's a male.
So let her accuse you of whatever she wants to accuse you of. So what? What does that change?
Nothing. I mean, nothing.
Right.
Same. I mean, nothing at all.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's not going to be happy all the time. As the man, you're going to have to make hard decisions sometimes. Sometimes you're gonna have to say, nah, we're not doing that. And you can poke your lip out all you want and everything, but this is a job that you hired me for when you chose me to be your man. You chose me to be the heavy sometimes. And if somebody agrees with me because they're a man, first of all, I don't know. Yeah, I guess you got the kind of relationship where you allow like you do arguing and stuff. Like I don't do any of that. Like if I went so far as to share my personal business with another man and my lady came back and said that, I'd probably just tell her to shut the hell up and keep it moving. Now I know there's a lot of women who just probably hung up like, oh my, no, you gonna tell me to shut the hell up? Yeah, I would tell you to shut the hell up and you shut the hell up because you're just being stupid. So now whoever doesn't agree with you, there's going to be a reason. Like, so that means there's no point in having somebody come in unless they agree with you. That's the only way we can have a functional conversation. If somebody strokes your female ego first by saying, well, I understand where you're coming from, sister, and you're right. He shouldn't have did that. He shouldn't have this, that, did that. But, did y'all think about this? I have to come to you with these little kid gloves and you're a grown behind funky woman. No, Nobody has time for that, man. And that's some Western fairy tale nonsense that a lot of people buy into. Nah, if you have to be the heavy and you have to be hated for a little while, that's just what you got to take. And if she says, I don't want to have no sex with you, whatever. But I know our family is going to be right, because you didn't have to go to him. You could have just made the decision. So the fact that you did, you opened yourself up to the possibility of him saying you're wrong. You know what I mean? So she's being a sore loser. So it's honestly, to be honest with you, brother, it's kind of a ridiculous situation. And I'm not blaming her like she's just a horrible person. But I am saying that I wouldn't give some of this stuff a second thought that you're telling me. I wouldn't even give it a second thought because from the moment you go outside of this house and you talk about what's going on inside of this house to people who I'm not a part of their community or they're not a part of this family, you've immediately violated at a level that is so supreme that you got to say something that makes sense after that to me. You can't violate at that level and then come back and still keep trying to blame me because we got to deal with that first. Because that within itself is a dangerous thing. So now what if she goes and she spreads that around the community and there's a brother in that community who may be attracted to her. And now that brother starts feeling a certain way about you behind that. And you may find yourself in a physical altercation with this person behind something that she said. That might not have even been true. Like that, if that's just dangerous and it's disgraceful on so many levels. You also have multiple people now who your children will always be looked at a certain way because of those statements. When those 10 years from now, yeah, I remember when her father did such and such and this and that and took the money away from the household. Hey, how you doing? How you doing, baby? All that stuff. That's disgraceful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, everybody runs their household a little differently. Maybe I'm not the one to answer some of this because I don't allow women to get that out of pocket. That's just ridiculous. If you that out of pocket, man, you gotta go. She gone. She gone. I don't get in none of this no more. She gone. Like she gone now. All right. How long she been gone?
I realized before.
How long has she been gone? How long she's been gone?
Since June.
Okay, June, July, August, September, October. Okay, so for 4 months now.
Correct.
Okay, so you got yourself another African woman now.
Absolutely.
Okay, there you go. Keep moving. You men, listen, man. We age like wine. We don't age like bread. We age like wine. So you could just keep doing what you need to do. Just don't make the mistakes that you made last time, and don't fall into that trap of I need to spend some time with myself. No, because you don't need therapy. You weren't the one who was going crazy. So you make sure that you continue your sexual survival, and you got to understand now, even per my book, that your children may come out crazy now. Those are the hard realities as men sometimes that we have to face too, because now that your children are down there with her and they're under a different kind of teaching now all the time. So they may turn around and resent you. So you gotta play a game of numbers at this point. If you still have the potential and the capacity to support and to create more children, you keep creating children, and you make sure that the next set are not kidnapped from you, and that they can be raised underneath you. You know, sometimes you gotta harden your heart, man, and you gotta make some cold hard investments, and that's what a lot of times this revolutionary work is about. It's about having to make those hard decisions, dealing with the enemy that's within your own gates. That's the one you got to deal with first. And in order to deal with that enemy within your gates, a lot of times you have to be cold-blooded. You might have 2 children with a woman, and let's say you're 30, 35 years old, and she might be 30, 35 years old. And let's say she's acting up and she's like, well, I'm going to leave. Then you have to sometimes do some cold-blooded math and say, you know what? I got 2 with her, 35. Heck, if she left this year and I got another woman by, let's say, 36, by 37, she starts having more children. At 37, I have another baby. Technically, I could still start over and raise those children. You know, let's say if I live to 77, I could raise those children and grandchildren up for another 40 years. So I actually could start all over again at this point. She may not have that option,
right?
You know, and sometimes you got to do that cold hard math, and you have to say, man, I got 2 children, and they may turn out to be total Negroes because of this situation. So instead of me putting all my stock in those 2 and not being totally sure of how they're going to come out, let me go make some more.
Right.
And I'm telling you, you share that with a lot of people, they'll say that that's mean and this and that, but you know, we Africans, man, and you know we don't overvalue life. we put the proper perspective value on life, but we don't overvalue it to the sense, you know, it's this romantic thing that we have here where it's like we end up getting caught out there because a lot of times our children and whatnot are used against us because that's all that we've ever put stock in, those 1 set or 2 or whatever it is of children. You know, so this is your opportunity to just keep it moving, man. Get yourself another African woman. Make sure you lay down the laws and don't do the stupid things that you did the first time around, because you know this is your fault.
Absolutely, I took full credibility.
Yeah, you did this because you made a monster.
So trust me, I got it. I won't make that happen again. That will never happen again.
Good. You'll make new mistakes. Just, you know, but don't make the old mistakes.
They won't be the old ones.
Yeah, don't be the old ones. Just, you know, make the new ones and keep moving. I mean,
I'm still learning in life now, but those of course, old mistakes, man. No.
Yeah, because you've gone through the trauma and the trauma ain't over. You know, because at one point you're gonna have to answer some hard questions to your children. So you know, the ugliness isn't over yet, but you can counterbalance that with moving on. Don't get wrapped up in the foolishness or in this feminist pursuit, because she's obviously a feminist, but don't get wrapped up in that. You know, just keep it moving. So that's my answer to that, brother. But sure thing, man. Thank you for the call. Take care, my brother.
No problem. Appreciate you, bro. Always, man. Be easy.
And you too, my brother. Peace. Yeah, I know a lot of you hate me for that answer, but I don't care. I don't care. Are you a part of my community? Are you down with ANU? You trying to get down with ANU? You trying to do what we're doing? You trying to help me with these orphanages? Are you trying to help me with these senior citizen wellness centers that we're developing? Are you helping me with the homeschooling? Are you helping me with the daycares? You know, are you helping me with requisitioning land and bringing people back to the continent and connecting them with their culture? If not, I don't care what you got to say, because we're not a part of the same culture. What's my religion? ANU. What's my last name? ANU. What's my culture? ANU. What's my purpose? ANU. Where am I from? ANU. You see? So anything outside, see, that's my core. Anything outside of that is fringe. It's fringe. You know, so I know a lot of you may not like the answer, but if you're not ANU, it doesn't matter, because you don't have to live by those same standards. The ANU standard is, we recognize that there's going to be casualties in this war. And the war is for your mind, and usually it begins with your family. And sometimes, sadly, and I covered this on the show Sun, Moon, and Stars, when you have battles on the earth, you're battling on top of your woman. She's the earth. So you're fighting on top of the earth and you're destroying her. So don't fight her. I don't fight women. That's the worst thing you could do. Plus, because you destroy the intimacy when you start arguing with women. You know, when you start creating any environment where you're going to disrespect her and she's going to disrespect you, you just don't, it's a little less and a little less as time goes by. You just don't like each other that much anymore. You just begin not to like each other. And it's small. It's just little incremental steps. But each and that happens from the very first argument. Once disrespect ensues, a little bit of the intimacy block is chipped off. So eventually there's no intimacy left. You're just there. You're just used to each other. Like Too Short says, she just used to you. You know, you just in the house together, you just, you know, living together, and then somebody comes along and lights your fire. Now you got problems. How do I get out of this situation? So the best thing to do is don't even argue, fellas. You know, if you got big plans, the bigger your plans, the bigger the preparation. You know, stop being so focused on your woman's breasts and thighs all the freaking time. You're gonna get it. She's gonna give it to you. You don't have to be so thirsty all the time over it. You're gonna get it anyway. So just hold out and talk to her. Get to know her. And tell her your plan. Look, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm about. This is what I have time for. And have a lot of those meetings, even if she's like, we already talked about it. We're going to talk about it again. We're going to talk about it before every date, every Friday night. We're going to go over we're going to have a bulletin meeting on what this is. When I was a young kid, I used to give sisters timelines, like literally. Pretty much from like the first phone call, like from the, you know, them giving me my phone number. I mean, their phone number, if I like them. The first time we would talk, I would say, okay, you know, by next month, this is what we're going to be doing. And in the month after that, we're going to do this. In the month, I've always, since I was like 13, 14 years old, always did that. Yeah, we're going to be, okay, so we just talking right now. So we just going to be, you know, was it when your kid, you call it talking. Oh, I'm talking to so-and-so. So I would be like, okay, we're going to talk for like 3 months. And then if I still like you after we talking, then you're going to be my girl. You know, I would put all these like little timelines, you know, in the situation. But even in my youthful need for organization, it worked. I never had even a girl from an older woman who was like, you're crazy. They always like, they appreciated the order. Okay, I know what I have to do. And I would let them know from the very beginning, you raise your voice at me, I'm gonna break up with you. Don't ever raise your voice at me. Don't put your hands on me. Don't embarrass me. Don't make me look bad in front of my friends. And I won't do any of that stuff to you. But if you do it to me, we're done. Okay. So you let them know, and you got to be willing to look them square in the eye and take the L. You know, because she might be like, well, F you then. Okay, well, okay, F me. Bye. You know, you got to be willing to move forward and put the L on your chest and say, okay, I lost that one. You know, sometimes it may be your fault, or sometimes it's her fault, but you got to be credible. I did a whole segment on credibility. You got to be credible. You know, you got to be a person of your word. If you say that you're not going to tolerate something, don't tolerate it. Because with every stale compromise, she loses respect for you. Every time you compromise, or she tries to negotiate with you, don't negotiate. Like Fela Kuti said, no agreement today, no agreement tomorrow, no agreements. This is what it is. You know, we not. Sometimes you meet women that say, well, let's be friends. Like, I don't befriend women. I used to always tell women that they want to meet me, and no, we can't be friends. Either we're gonna be lovers, or that's it. When I see you, hey, what's up? But I don't do that. And then some of them, you know, they want to play, they want to test you and see how far you go with this. So they say, well, I can't do that. Okay, well, don't call me again. So they'll text you. Just ignore it. I block the numbers, cut it. No, it's either this or it's nothing. And I'm not playing, because I don't have time for that. You know, people died trying to get here. You know, we drained the Atlantic. You know how many bones would be there? ivory bones would be like a carpet of ivory. And you want me to sit here and play with you and negotiate with you? Are you out of your GD mind? What is wrong with you? Or you want me to sit here and have children with you and let you hold those children ransom over my head? Are you crazy? You know that the call and the imperative that we have in this time as conscious people, you know the situations that the world is dealing with and don't know how to deal with. And those of us who are the information holders, the responsibility that we have on us. And you want me to sit here and argue with you about what movie you want to watch or something stupid like that? You want me to argue with you, period. You see, that's why I really can't. Sometimes some of the answers, I can't really answer them in a way like I guess a normal person would, because I'm always pressed with the agenda and the purpose of my ancestors. I've been thinking about that since I was 6, 7 years old, or maybe younger, because they used to always say you always had these serious looks on you. You just sit in the corner quietly, serious look. You know, I heard I was like that since I was like 2, 3 years old. I was always thinking, always mentating, you know. So even now, it's the same thing. I'm always just sitting in dark rooms, just thinking, you know, because I feel the weight. I feel the weight of my Egun. That's why the Egun Elekes are all black. That black is the wisdom. That's the wisdom and the responsibility that your Egun put on you. You know, you have Egun crying out. Your ancestors are crying out for some type of redemption, for their names to be there. Some of them are forgotten. Their names to be said again, for them to be put on your shrines, for you to have children and bring them forth. Let them come back to the earth again, because they're stuck and they're trapped in the ancestral realm. And you over here arguing with some deadhead. Come on, man. No. And I'm not just talking to the brother, because he's got his stuff. He read the book and he got his stuff together. He's marching forward. But I'm speaking to all of you who have issues like that, who speak to me, and why you get those looks from me when I'm like, ask me about something else. Please ask me about something else. You know, do you know how serious our condition is for you to be focused on trying to figure out how to get along with one human? Yeah, me and my girl, we've been together for 15 years. Who cares, man? Come on. Who cares? You know the call that's on us, man? We're in the age of artificial intelligence. We're in the age of genetically modified organisms. We're in the age of drone attacks. We're in the age of fraudulent and fictitious debt culture. We're in the age of foreclosures. We're in the age of mass homelessness. You still got people dying in the world of malnutrition. And you want to tell me about your funky bow-legged girl like I care about that? You know the serious call that we have on, man, stand up. And I'm talking, when I say man, I'm not just talking to you, man, I'm talking to you women too. Stand up. Grow up. Stand up. We got a call on us, man. Those of us who are awake in this time, we have a serious call on. We got to have babies, as many children as we want to have. And we have to raise them right and stop doing our children dirty and compromising for convenience. Yeah, I took him to get some pizza because I was tired. I didn't want it. Man, put him on a fast. I'm quick to do that with my children. If we nothing to eat, or if we on the road and we can't find anything to eat, all right, fast time. Because I'd rather you fast and clean your systems out. I'll get you some water and, you know, we'll rock that. Or you know, you'll be eating water and peanuts for a minute. But I'd rather do that than give you some garbage on any level, whether I'm giving you garbage in your clothing, what I say to you, what I name you, what I let you watch on the idiot box, where I let you live, the people I let you be around, because I love my Egun, man. I love them. Look at what they did to me. They made me a chief. It's a big deal. I don't talk about it much, but it's a big deal. I didn't have that. They gave that to me. So why would I compromise on any level or negotiate with someone who doesn't respect that? See, that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. you know, with the song that I played. Yeah, if you're around people who are not respecting what you're doing, F them. I don't care who they are. Mother, father, grandfather, whatever. You know, I'm not saying you can cut the chain, but you gotta be able to look in them in the face and politely say, you know what, F you. I love you. We're still connected, but I got to do what I got to do so that I can ascend all of us. You know, I got to get around some individuals who are thinking on this wavelength, because we're in a serious time. And all of you who you sitting there beefing, and who, the ones, your family members who are making you feel guilty and all that, they'll be dead soon anyway, because they're probably invested in the death culture anyway. They don't matter. Yeah, I know that's mean, but you know, everybody knows Chief Yuya is mean, so you expect that from me anyway. So all you gotta do is tune into somebody else on another station who's giving you love and light, and it'll balance it out with all the harsh, horrible things that I say to you, because I'm telling you that your ancestors are crying out. You know how I know? Because I work with them every day, man. Every day. Not just my Egun, but the Egun and the planet. I work with the natural forces. The trees talk to me. The earth talks to me. Water talks to me. You know, everybody's disgruntled on the planet. I remember I went to Central Park once, man. Them trees were like, I had to leave. They were so disgruntled. I'm like, yo, all right, I get it. I got it. You know, because I used to jog in Central Park, and I would jog, pour my libations. I used to do this little 3-mile run, do a mile and a half, pour my libations at this tree, and then I would jog back to the entrance. You know, I told you I wasn't built for speed. I'm not a big time runner. That's what I could do. But man, them trees used to be going off. And then I remember one year I went back after staying away for a while, and they were silent. I said, look at that. They freaking left. These ain't even trees. And all these trees in trees in Central Park are dead. There's no trees in there anymore. Like, you have the shells that you think are trees, the stuff that you call trees, but the spirits left. Like so many other things have left the planet. So you see, you think certain things are going to last forever, but they're not. You know, you better cherish it while it's here. That's how we felt about the golden age of hip hop in the 90s, right? It's going to be like this forever. Friggity fresh. You know, and look what happened. Nothing lasts forever, man. Not even your little corny marriage. That doesn't last forever either. So make sure, as long as you're in it, that it's potent. And that you give the beast a stomach ache. You see? And that little short time that it's just a flash in the sky, the time that we're here on the planet. It's a flash in the sky. You see? If I go off today and I never broadcast another show, 90% of you will forget all about me within 3 years. I mean, even to the point my name. Chief, it was Chief Yo-Yo. Yayu Yeehaw. Yeehaw. That's what it was. It was Yeehaw. Chief Yeehaw. Yeah, that brother. Yeah, he had some good stuff. You know? So, nah, man, we got some serious stuff in front of us, man. So, you know, it just ties into what I was saying earlier in terms of knowing the context, knowing when to step off, knowing when it's the wrong place and the wrong time for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish with the people who you're trying to accomplish it with. Sometimes they just can't come with you, you know, or sometimes they're not going to relate to you because the vibration is just so different, and you become the bully. Like, if I went around certain friends of mine right now, I know where they're at right now. It's 10:33 p.m. on a Thursday night, New York City. I know the gambling spot. I know where they're at. You know, if I go down to the gambling spot and start berating them, they're going to be like, yo, why, what's wrong with you? You know, why would you come down here with that? Do we come to the shrine with our, you know, goonery? So don't come here with your Afrocentricity. Okay, I can respect that. There's a context and there's a place for everything. Now, I'm still connected because, you know, hey, you know, a lot of chiefs got a little bit of goon in them. But I know the context and the environment for what it is that we need to do. And I know how serious it is here. We don't have time to play around and waste. So I commend that brother for, you know, making the decisions that he made. And she probably left him, you know, because that's most men usually don't leave their wives. Like, if a man is unhappy, he'll cheat. before he leaves. He'll cheat forever, but he's not going to leave, you know. So she probably left him, but you know, stay in good spirits. And I know sometimes as men we pretend like we're in good spirits. He may be, you know, I'm sure he went through his dark nights, because come on, it's rough not having your children around. That's a rough thing if you're used to waking up every day and seeing them, and then you wake up one morning and you're used to your routine of either waking them up or them busting the room door open or whatever it is that they, you know, your children do, and then that's gone and the house is empty and silent. That has sent a person into a horrible tailspin. You know, I've seen it many times. And sometimes, you know, when we're out, because we're afraid to really say, "Nah, I'm hurting, man. I feel like I got thrown away like a piece of trash." You know, we put up those fronts. You know, we toasting in the club. You know, yeah, you know, F these hoes. Let's toast to F in these hoes. You know, but then in your quiet time, you at home or you in the parking lot of the club, like laid out in your car crying, got your seat all the way back reclined because you don't want anybody to see you, and you just in a puddle of tears and urine. So, you know, we all go through it, but I commend him for being able to at least go through it with his eyes wide open with some perspective. All right, so that has been our Thunderground Thursday for this evening. I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll be right back tomorrow live and direct. You can call in at 347-945-7680 with Foundational Friday. And as you notice, tomorrow's show also doesn't have a title. Whatever hits me, however the spirits hits me, you know, I'll have the titles for the rest of the month. But yeah, I'm just going with the feeling, you know, going with the feeling. Yeah, man. All right. So thank you for listening, and I'll check you all tomorrow. And please share the video, this YouTube video. Share it with your friends. Comment, like, let me know what you think, especially your perspective. Give him some advice, you know, because like I said, I'm sure he's strong, but he has his dark nights. Trust me, he has his dark nights. Not having his family with him and having to start over. You know, even if the new woman is a dynamo. You know, we always wish that we could stay with the first one we fell in love with, you know. So, yeah, definitely leave some comments and encourage the brother, or whatever advice you want to give him. He's a no good, dirty rat, whatever it is, whatever you're thinking. But I'm sure he knows himself. All right. So I'll speak to you all tomorrow for Thunderground Thursday. 347-945-7680 is the calling number. And you can always go to youtube.com/enlightenment and transformation TV. Also, the forums, they're very basic, but they're now up on Enlightenment and Transformation. So you can also talk about and comment on the shows there, because like I said, the Facebook group that we have will be coming down momentarily. Until such time, I am Chief Yuya. Peace.
Are you ready to take action and rise to the next stage of your evolution? Then monthly life coaching services at osirislife.com are just for you. Osiris Life does not just focus on spiritual development. We offer a holistic approach to helping you realize your goals and teach you the tools to overcome any barriers to your success. Services at Osiris Life are provided on a monthly basis and include, but are not limited to, spiritual consultations and one-on-one coaching, instructionals via podcasts and videos, life mapping and goal tracking, anonymity, spiritual work done on your behalf, and there are 3 package levels to choose from. Take the steps to get your life on track and flourishing by purchasing a subscription package today at osirislife.com. We invite you to share in the power of goodwill by becoming an ANU Nation sponsorship partner. ANU Nation is a community design organization whose programs and services often depend on sponsors and philanthropic support from foundations, businesses, and generous individuals like you. Our sponsorship program provides involvement by our affiliates in the 5 major markets, plus the impact of an international media campaign. By partnering with us, you join a powerful movement that supports thousands of people who find healing and personal growth and development with our help. For more information and to purchase a sponsorship package today, please visit us at anunation.org/anu/sponsor dash us.